Yo, whoa, what is going on YouTube? It's your boy Dan, aka aDrive. But bringing you guys a brand new video today, and today we're breaking down the Pokemon Unite tier list as of September 4th, 2021. A lot has changed in the game since it dropped, and the newest character, Blastoise, has certainly shaken things up. And it's been a few weeks since I've done a tier list, and I'm really excited to break all of this down for you guys. Now, to let you guys know, I have been grinding Unite. If you don't follow the channel, I've been playing it every single day on my live streams at twitch.tv/aDrive, and I even worked my way up to the top 500 in the Masters tier, playing pretty much exclusively Crustal. But by playing in Masters tier with a stack of awesome players that are all also about top 500, I've been playing against some of the best players in the world, and I even have a coach who is the #1 to #5 ranked player in the world. So I've really spent a tremendous amount of time and effort and energy to get better at Pokemon Unite. So I think we have some pretty good insight now, and way more insight to the game than I did a few weeks ago when we were doing tier lists. So I'm excited to share my thoughts with you guys and kind of break everything out. Obviously, some of this is going to be subjective, and you may have some different opinions, but this is my experience from playing high level in Masters rank and playing against some of the best players in the world. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that, as we're constantly playing against top 100 players pretty much every single day on my live stream. So tune in if you want to see some epic Crustal gameplay and much more. And without further ado, let's break down the tier list and talk about every single Pokemon, all 23 of them in Pokemon Unite. But without further ado, let's jump into things. We've got Wigglytuff here, and it's just going straight to S tier. If you don't know about Wigglytuff, this thing is busted. It gets its Unite move at level 8, which is faster than most characters in the game. Its Unite move adds a tremendous amount of utility to the team, protecting the team, healing the team, providing shields with Buddy Barrier, and much, much more. Its Sing is incredibly powerful. It has a really, really good burst damage. It is just so good at crowd control. Rollout's even solid on it. Wigglytuff is the premier Pokemon right now. And there's also a few different bugs with Wigglytuff, which makes it so it bugs out Unite moves, and it has all sorts of glitches associated with it. Its passive is ridiculous. Cute Charm and pulling opposing Pokemon close to it. I think there's no doubt in most people's minds that Wigglytuff is one of the premier Pokemon in the game right now, and it's just such a standout. They basically made it an all-arounder. It's in the support class, but this thing is basically a defender, all-arounder, support. I mean, it's crazy. Wigglytuff is crazy. It is that good, and if you don't have it on your team, you're almost at a significant disadvantage. So I gotta put Wigglytuff as S tier. One of the premier Pokemon throughout the series of Unite so far has been Ninetales, and I'm going to put Ninetales at A. Ninetales provides really, really good lane support, really good stuns. I mean, it can freeze opposing Pokemon with kind of the Ice Crystal above their head. It's got a really cool Unite move, which does a good amount of damage, and it's just a really premier Pokemon in lane. And I think when you have 2 Pokemon on each side going to lane and 1 Pokemon in jungle, having really good laners is super important. Aurora Veil is super duper good for team fights, and I just think Ninetales has consistently been one of the top Pokemon in the game. Its passive is really good as well, like kind of identifying Pokemon and chipping them down, and if you really get good with those combos, you can do some pretty incredible freezing. So I gotta keep Ninetales up here. There's been times where we put it at S tier, but I think right now it sits at A tier, and we're gonna really try to, keep that S tier for the premier Pokemon that you almost have to have on almost every team composition. So I think Ninetales sits nicely at A. Moving forward, we've got Charizard here, and Charizard, as much as it has some pretty significant buffs, it just really lacks compared to other Pokemon. It doesn't really get started until level 9 when it fully evolves and it gets access to its Unite move. It does have one of the fastest Unite moves in the game, so it's got a really good cooldown with that. So you oftentimes can get 4 Unite moves off in a game, but ultimately, Charizard is incredibly underwhelming. It really struggles in lane. If you send it jungle, then there's a little bit of an advantage there, but by sending it jungle, that means you're not sending something else jungle, which in itself is just putting you at a disadvantage. So while Charizard has received some buffs lately to its AoE damage with Fire Blast and its Fire Punch damage and things like that, I just still feel like Charizard is very underwhelming, and there's just so many other picks that are just better than Charizard, especially in the all-arounder category, which there's one particularly we're going to talk about later, which is most certainly S tier, and it's just so hard to beat that Pokemon right now. One of the premier Pokemon in the game for the longest time was actually Cinderace. Cinderace has pretty much topped the charts at S tier since the game has come out, but I'm actually gonna put it in, I'm gonna put it in A tier, I think. I think I'm gonna put it in A tier. I can actually make an argument for B tier, which is maybe a little crazy. You know what, I'm gonna put it in B tier. I'm gonna put it in B tier, and the reason being is Cinderace is the ADC, right? It's the attack damage carry, but there is a Pokemon right now that does what Cinderace does, but much, much better, and we'll talk about that later in the tier list. And because of that, Cinderace has kind of fallen off. But let me tell you, this thing is still a premier threat. It has great range damage. It has great burst with things like Blaze Kick. It can jump forward, hit opposing Pokemon. It's got great mobility with Feint. It can get out of dodge. It's got a pretty good Unite move, especially when it comes to stealing objectives. But I feel like at this point in the game, it is outclassed. So we're gonna put it, I could see it in A, right? This is one of those that I could kind of put on the border of A and B, but I'm gonna put him in B tier for now, just to even things out, shake things up a little bit. I don't think that's undeserving. We've got Cramorant here, and Cramorant actually is seen a lot in high-level play. We're gonna put that in A tier. Cramorant has one of the best kind of crowd control, kind of dispersion effects with its ultimate move, where it basically shoots off these missiles in this specific area, and it can zone off the opponents better than almost any other Pokemon in the game. It's got really, really good damage, and it is one of the most devastating Pokemon to face early game in lane. Whirlpool is so, it creates this massive snowball effect against the opposing Pokemon, where you can start stealing objectives and start stealing farm on the map so easily, because Whirlpool just sucks them down and takes those Odinos or those Corphish early game and really creates a steamroll effect for the rest of the game, giving you an advantage for that Dreadnought, giving you an advantage for the next Rotom, and so on and so forth. You're clearing those bees so fast. It's just incredible what this Pokemon can do. So I feel like it certainly deserves A tier. It does fall off a little bit towards the mid to late game because it loses Whirlpool. Surf is still really good. Hurricane's still really good. I don't think there's a ton of argument for Air Slash. Most people are running Surf over Dive. But again, it gets its Unite move, which is so good for kind of zoning off objectives. And that's what this game's all about, right? Sniping objectives, zoning off objectives. And in the right scenario, you can set up a Cramorant and just, if that Cramorant circle pops up, you have to get out of it. Otherwise, you're going to get shredded unless it's super low and your whole team's able to pounce on it. And because of that, you can almost push people away from the Zapdos fights or the Dreadnought fights. It's just really, really powerful. My main is Crustal. I've actually climbed my way up the Crustal leaderboards, and I'll tell you what, I was previously using Shell Smash X-Scissor for a really long time. With the rise of Wigglytuff, that's not a feasible set anymore, because if you hit the Wigglytuff, you only get one of the 3 X-Scissor hits. I think Crustal has a place in the metagame right now, but I think it sits at B tier. Crustal has the ability to shred objectives with Stealth Rock. If you've been watching my stream, I run a very unique Crustal set, which is not so unique anymore since a lot of people are using it now, but I'm running Scope Lens, Stealth Rock, Fluffy Tail with Shell Smash, and the mobility you get, the ability to split push on the map and kind of approach objectives differently. If your team's fighting at Rotom, you can almost kind of go to bottom lane and steal the opposing team's farm. You can get sneaky caps in the back while the objectives are taking place, and you can also burn through objectives, right? Dreadnoughts, Rotoms, and Zapdos, you fly through those. You can take jungle farm if you need to. You're able to get your ultimate very, very quick, which is super duper good. I think I would rank Crustal higher if Wigglytuff wasn't so high. I would actually make an argument for Crustal in A tier, but because of the prevalence of Wigglytuff, it's so challenging to use Crustal right now, because if you try to ultimate near a Wigglytuff, you can't do it. It cancels the ultimate because of Wigglytuff's passive. So there's some bugs and some interactions going on between Wigglytuff and Crustal that makes him a little challenging to use right now, but I do feel like Stealth Rock, Shell Smash is incredibly powerful. Again, I've been running it with Scope Lens for those crits, and it can be devastating once you hit level 6. A little bit of time to get going. Like, once you hit 4 to evolve, it's strong, but once you get to 6, if you can get 6 before the Dreadnought fight, which oftentimes I can, it can be a really powerful Pokemon. So definitely look into Crustal. I feel like it's a very viable pick right now. Again, a little bit off meta, but still really strong. We've got Eldegoss coming up next, and Eldegoss has previously been the premier healer and supporter in the game, but there's a new healer in town, so that's going to put Eldegoss in the B tier in my mind. Eldegoss still has the ability to increase movement speed with Leaf Tornado and still provide really good healing. It's got an incredible ultimate move for team fights, but again, I just ultimately think that there's a better healer in town, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. I still think Eldegoss is a super solid pick, and it's very much so able to take a tremendous amount of damage, but I just think Blissy's better, so we'll talk about Blissy more when the time comes. We've got Garchomp next, and Garchomp did receive some buffs, but I still think Garchomp is in D tier, which is really sad. It's probably gonna make some people a little mad at me, but this Pokemon is it's just bad right now, guys. Like, that's just the reality of it. I know some of these Pokemon, they take a while to get going, and that's okay, right? It's okay to have a Pokemon that doesn't flourish until the late game, and we'll talk about that with Blastoise. But Garchomp is so bad until it gets to Garchomp, and even then, it's still outclassed by Pokemon like Lucario. I just simply can't rank it any higher than D tier right now. I just feel like it's incredibly underwhelming. Sure, you can get shredded, but like, dude, no one plays Garchomp right now. Nobody in the higher tiers is feasibly going into a game and saying, yes, I'm playing Garchomp. It's just simply what it is. I just don't think he's a very good pick right now. He still needs more buffs. I think they need to, in order for Garchomp to be better, they need to change his evolution pattern. He needs to evolve into Gabite sooner, and he probably needs to evolve into Garchomp a little sooner. That alone could change things for Garchomp, but even so, I still think he's outclassed significantly by Lucario, so I just can't rate him any higher than that. Gardevoir, one of the newer characters out of the game post-launch, and it's an incredible fighting type, or psychic type mage that can deal a good amount of damage, but I think it's very outclassed and very underwhelming right now. The amount of damage you can get from Psyshock is really, really cool. Super good at coming in and taking objectives. Its ultimate can be a little tricky at times. If you miss it, it's kind of a wasted ult, so that's tough to use, and it does start off so slow, much like Garchomp. Ralts is basically dead weight until second Dreadnought almost, and in a game that functions so strongly on that first Dreadnought means so much in a game like this because it gives you the snowball advantage, it gives you the ult advantage for the rest of the game. That first Dreadnought is so crucial, and you just have this dead weight Ralts most of the time sitting there that really isn't doing a whole lot. It gets bullied in lane. It's just really, really bad early game. And while Gardevoir can be super strong in the late game, don't get me wrong, right? A lot of these Pokemon can be super strong in the late game, and it can be. It's so powerful. It just struggles so much for like the first 6.5, 7 minutes. I can't rank it any higher when there's Pokemon that get to their final evolution faster, they get to that damage faster, and they can just do that role so much better. Now you can jungle with Gardevoir, which is really good, but again, at that point you're sacrificing something so significant in the fact that there's so many other Pokemon that can do that role way better than Gardevoir right now. I just can't, in good conscience, put it any higher than that. So C tier it is. Sorry, Gardevoir mains. And the premier Pokemon for a long time was Gengar. Gengar was the absolute low mid-tier killer. I can tell you, I hated facing Gengars, but no one in high tier is running Gengar anymore, man. No one is running Gengar. I'm gonna put him in C tier. It's crazy, man. His nerfs weren't even that significant, right? They changed his immune frames for a little bit, his iframes on his Hex and Sludge Bomb combination. But I think people just realize that there's just better Pokemon at this point. Gengar is not a good laner. It's very bad in lane. You gotta send a jungle, but again, we're comparing these Pokemon not only to themselves, but also to the other Pokemon in the metagame. And at this moment, there is a premier Pokemon that can carry in jungle so much better than the rest. So we'll talk about that one next, obviously. But Gengar does have the viability of the Dream Eater and Shadow Ball combo. It's not a bad option. Gengar can still deal a tremendous amount of damage, and against unprepared teams can shred through them, don't get me wrong. But at this point in the metagame, it has fallen off significantly in favor of other Pokemon, and that other Pokemon happens to be Greninja, baby. Ladies and gentlemen, who would have thought it, but Greninja is S tier, and it is one of the premier Pokemon right now in Pokemon Unite. Probably the biggest ADC or biggest carry you could possibly have right now. Greninja, believe it or not. It is wild how strong this thing is, and the real play is with Surf. The real play is with Surf, not with Water Shuriken. Yes, you can run Water Shuriken, it's viable, but the Surf resets, the cooldown you get on Surf resets are absolutely mind-blowing. It evolves quickly. It has its Unite move is a little bit lackluster. That's the one thing that holds it back, but it's pretty good for stealing objectives, so you can't hate on that. But just the amount of damage that a Greninja can do, especially coming out of jungle, it burns that jungle really fast. It's super strong early game. Its range attacks are great, and again, those Surfs, you can just shoot through the enemy team and just rip through them to shreds like no other character right now can, and I feel like that separates Greninja from the rest. You're actually at a significant disadvantage right now in competitive if you do not have a Greninja on your team. It is that simple. This is the premier Pokemon right now in Pokemon Unite in my mind, and I don't play it myself, but I know that this thing, it is almost essential at this point, and that's one of the reasons why the Gengars and the Cinderaces of the world are ranked so much lower now, because those would normally be fighting against the Greninja for the jungle, and Greninja right now is just that far above the rest. So if you're a Greninja main, you're feeling good right now, and you're hoping they don't nerf him. I prefer actually that they do buffs instead of nerfs, but we'll have to see how things play out on that next patch, but Greninja right now is by far the premier ADC in the game. And this Pokemon hasn't been touched, and it's Lucario, and I think Lucario still deserves its S tier right now. Lucario is by far the best all-arounder, which is why Charizard and Garchomp get kind of so pushed back, because Lucario is just that much better than them. Lucario has just stupid movement speed, right? The fact that he can move around with Bone Rush and Extreme Speed is picked up in popularity because of those resets, and obviously Power Up Punch is one of the best smites in the game, the best objective stealing move in the game. You can rush through, deal tremendous amounts of damage to those objectives like Dreadnought and Rotom and Zapdos, and ultimately steal them, and you've got tremendous amount of bulk. And the thing is that with Lucario is, and this is the offset to the Charizard Garchomp argument, is Lucario is strong from level 4. I mean, it's crazy how good Lucario is as soon as he gets that Power Up Punch. And he's very naturally bulky already. He doesn't have to evolve. He starts off strong and ends strong, and he's just that good, man. Lucario really is the best all-arounder, and it's by a long shot. It's not even close in my mind. Another all-arounder we've got here is Machamp, and while I do feel like Machamp is better than Charizard Garchomp, I don't think it's that much better, especially with Lucario hanging around as a fighting type as well. Machamp does have a couple things going for it, right? It's got a pretty cool Unite move, it's got Submission, which can seemingly yank opponents from across the map after they eject button, and it does some really cool things, but much like the other all-arounders, they struggle so much in lane, right? So when you send them to jungle, it's great, but when you can have a Greninja jungle, it's just another ball game, you know what I mean? So again, I just feel like Machamp is a little lackluster right now in terms of what he can do. He's got some really cool kit with cross chop and things like that, but submission's really the kind of the bread and butter there, but again, just a little underwhelming right now at this point in the game. Next up, we got Mr. Mime, and I'm someone who has a lot of experience with Mr. Mime. I played over 100 games with this character, and I feel like Mr. Mime has a place right now. It's very underwhelming in the higher ranks. It has really good damage burst. I feel like its walls can be really trickily placed and be really advantageous for the team at zoning off the opposing Pokemon or singling out a specific Pokemon. You can deal massive burst damage with Confusion. It does get its Unite move very fast. It's got a really cool Unite move in terms of stunning the opposing Pokemon, being able to steal objectives, and you can get it oftentimes 3 or 4 times in a game. So those things play in Mr. Mime's favor. But it struggles a little bit until it gets that combination, and if you're not hitting that combination properly with the wall plus the Confusion or utilizing the surroundings to ultimately get those Confusion stuns, its damage is a little bit lackluster up until that point. And the reality of it is, with a Pokemon like Wigglytuff and Blissy, it's so hard to justify fitting Mr. Mime in the comp because the premier composition right now is really you're running Greninja, Lucario, Wigglytuff, and then you probably want Blissy on there, and you probably want Snorlax on there, and it's really hard to fit all of these Pokemon, so Mr. Mime kind of falls off when you have the Blissys and the Wigglytuffs of the world as just a better option right now for support, and again, there's just better offensive characters from Mime, like a Lucario or Greninja, that can fill those roles otherwise. So, unfortunately, Mime is going to be sitting in B tier for us. Up next, we have Pikachu here, and Pikachu is going to sit in C tier. Pikachu, a really good early laner with Electro Web. Deals a lot of damage, can trap the opposing Pokemon, and deal tremendous amounts of damage with things like Electro Ball, which never misses pretty much. And it's a really good Pokemon, but it's super duper squishy, and it falls off so fast mid to late game when the other Pokemon start evolving. It really loses that. You have to kind of attack from a range, and if you get in close to a fight, you're really gonna just get absolutely wrecked, especially with the prevalence of Buddy Barrier right now. Pikachu's damage output is just not enough to shred through those when the Unite moves are going off in team fights. Now, while Electro Ball can be really good to smite objectives and things of that nature, I just feel like Pikachu is incredibly outclassed at this point in the metagame. It's just really hard to justify it. Again, good early game laner, but it just falls off as soon as you lose Electro Web. You do have the damage outputs of like Thunder and stuff like that, but it's just not enough. It's just not enough for a Pokemon so squishy that really, even if you're a level or 2 above, your advantage is still minimal. So I think Pikachu is going to need some buffs and a little bit of tweaking for it to become a premier Pokemon in the game right now. Slowbro, baby! And the thing about Slowbro, man, he's a cool Pokemon, don't get me wrong. He did get a big nerf with his Surf. I'm going to put him in C tier. He no longer has the same impact with its knockback effect with Surf, its stun effect. So he does drop off a little bit, but I think Slowbro is definitely a niche defender pick. It's a little trickier to utilize now with Blastoise, which we'll talk about last here. Blastoise is pretty solid, but Slowbro's Telekinesis, very cool, being able to single out an opposing Pokemon, kind of hold them in the air, keep them from being able to engage in a fight. But again, there's just better defenders right now, and there's Wigglytuff. So really hard to fit Slowbro in a composition when those other Pokemon exist. I think some buffs could really make a difference. It did get that Scald buff as well, but again, still Slowbro is lacking. The one thing it has going for it is it does evolve relatively early, so you do get that kind of bulk early on. So it does have that kind of role comparative to like a Blastoise, which evolves at level 9 finally. But again, it's just not there yet. I just don't think Slowbro's there yet in terms of how it stacks up against the other defenders. And speaking of defenders, great segue. It still says S tier, man. Even with the nerf to block, Snorlax is still the premier defender in the game, in my opinion. This Pokemon is incredibly tanky. It is an incredible early lane Pokemon. It is very difficult to contest in lane. In fact, Snorlax Cramorant lane is one of the most devastating lanes you can face early game. The fact that its tackle attack, I think it's tackle, does so much damage. It could burst on the powered up version of it after you attack. It's just crazy, dude. It's got incredible sustain with being able to rest. It's got a really good Unite move that allows it to stay in fights much longer by healing itself up. And even though it's been nerfed, its block is so good. Heavy Slam's really good. There's even been some usability in the metagame for Flail and Yawn, as much as I think block is premier. The fact that you can simply zone Pokemon off objectives and actually keep Pokemon away from their teams, you stun them with Heavy Slam, Snorlax is just that good right now, and it's hard for other defenders like you know, Crustal and Slowbro to even stack up against a Pokemon like Snorlax, which is so good, man. It's just that much better than the rest, in my opinion, and it certainly deserves that S tier ranking. Coming up next is Absol, and Absol is a devastating Pokemon to face when it comes to it coming out of the jungle, but I think it's actually D tier, guys. I really do. Absol's a Pokemon that has some of the most highest damage in the game, especially from an early game perspective. It can come out of the jungle and it can wreck you. Even in lane, it's devastating in the early game, but its damage output falls off so much as you get to the late game. As the other Pokemon start to scale up and evolve, it really, really struggles there, and it's so dang squishy. It relies so much on engaging up against the opposing Pokemon, whereas a Pokemon like Greninja can kind of get in and get out of a fight. Absol struggles a little bit in that regard, and then other Pokemon like Cinderace can attack from a distance and deal tremendous amounts of damage there. I just feel like right now, the way the metagame is shaking out, Absol just does not have enough damage and sustain to be able to engage in a fight long enough to be able to do what it can do. In a 1v1 scenario, don't get me wrong, Absol is one of the most devastating Pokemon to face up against when it's 1v1, but we're talking about a game that involves team fights, and Absol simply does not stand up with the rest of the Pokemon. So as much as I love this Pokemon, I just feel like it's not very good right now, man. I'm gonna be real with you. I just don't think it's very good. Talonflame is up next, and he's gonna be joining Absol in the T tier, and I'm someone who's played Talonflame. You know, I actually played some Masters Jungle Talonflame for a bit there. I had some decent success with it. It's a Pokemon that I enjoy playing because it can come out of nowhere, drop a Brave Bird, Aerial Ace, do some incredible amounts of burst damage there. But it's so frail, and even though its speed is really, really good and can change the game with back caps and Gold Getter and some really cool stuff, it just does not stack up to the other Pokemon right now. It is very underwhelming. It is incredibly squishy. Its whole kind of mantra is diving in, engaging in a fight, and then getting out of the fight. But the problem is, again, if you're diving into anything more than 1 or 2 Pokemon, you're gonna just get shredded so fast. 1 stun, 1 CC, and you're done for, right? Because you just get melted. So, unfortunately, Talonflame, it just does not stand up with the rest right now, so I'm gonna have to put it in D tier. Venusaur, one of the biggest beneficiaries of a lot of the buffs we've seen, and while it's not seen a ton in Master Rank right now from what I've seen, I still think it's a very good Pokemon, so I'm gonna put it in B tier. Venusaur has the ability to steal objectives better than almost any Pokemon with its Solar Beam. Sludge Bomb can chip things down and slow things down in the late game, and that's really valuable. Its Unite move is a little bit underwhelming at times, I'm gonna be honest, but Solar Beam is very, very powerful, and a good Venusaur player can really deal a lot of damage. Much like some of the other Pokemon, though, it struggles to get going. It takes a little while to get evolved, and once it finally does, it does have that power. But the beautiful thing is you actually do get Solar Beam at a decent level. I want to say it's 6 or 7. Once you get Solar Beam, then you at least have that, and then you have an opportunity to try to steal some objectives like Dreadnought and kind of stand far away from a fight, deal a tremendous amount of burst damage with that Solar Beam. So ultimately, I think Venusaur is still a really solid Pokemon. With what we have going on right now, when you could have a Wigglytuff, a Greninja, a Lucario, a Snorlax, a Cramorant, a Ninetales on your team, it's just really hard to justify putting a Venusaur on it right now, but still a solid Pokemon. I'm excited to see if they tweak it anymore. I think there's some excitement around the Petal Dance Giga Drain variant too. I think that's kind of an underrated set, but that's because Solar Beam is so good right now. So we'll have to see if they buff that anyway, because I think there is some viability to Petal Dance and Giga Drain. It's just Venusaur doesn't have enough bulk. If he was an all-arounder, I feel like there's a lot more potential there, but right now I just feel like Venusaur is a little lackluster. Zeraora, baby. I feel like when Zeraora came out, it was like a new player's nightmare, but I just don't feel like he stands up to some of the rest of the Pokemon right now. He's one of the slowest Unite moves in the game. I don't think he gets it until 10, but the real kind of creep for him is 8. Discharge is just so good. It deals so much damage. And against a good Zeraora player, don't get me wrong, you're going to get shredded, right? Especially in the early to mid game. It's very, very strong once it gets that discharge. But again, the thing is with Zeraora is you're sacrificing something else, right? He's not the best laner. He's okay in lane. He really wants to have jungle because he wants to be above the other Pokemon. But when you can send a Greninja jungle, it's just really hard to say, yeah, I'm going to use Zeraora right now. Greninja is just that much above the rest because of that Surf reset. It's just so strong. So I think Zeraora is a solid Pokemon. Don't get me wrong. I think it's devastating to kind of newer players in lower tiers, but you almost never see it in Master Tier at this rank. It just doesn't exist right now. So maybe it'll get some tweaks. I think it's a good Pokemon, but I just think it's a little lackluster. Poor Eldegoss gets kind of the shaft a little bit, but I'm going to put Blissy in A tier. I feel like Blissy is a very, very solid Pokemon right now. Helping Hand is so good, giving a speed and attack buff to an ally Pokemon, allows you to shred objectives much faster. It has the luxury of being able to run Fluffy Tail to kind of benefit from that as well. It can actually deal decent amounts of damage after Helping Hand as well, so let's not forget that. And it's soft-boiled, right? Soft-boiled is the real bread and butter here for Blissy. Being able to heal up an ally multiple times without that cooldown, can sustain fights longer. It's got a really cool Unite move that allows it to support its allies much better, and I just feel like Blissy right now is the premier healer, no doubt about it. And last but certainly not least, the newest Pokemon added to Pokemon Unite, who I played a good amount of games with, is Blastoise. And I'm gonna put Blastoise in the A tier right now. Blastoise has a couple different movesets it can run. It can run Surf, which is crazy. You could drag an opponent between 2 points, which is nuts. But I think the real crazy set for Blastoise right now is the Rapid Spin set. And it's still debated whether it's gonna be Hydro Pump or Water Spout. I like Water Spout. Personally, but the amount of damage you can do with that set is actually bonkers, dude. Like, you can legitimately, much like Crustal and Stealth Rock, shred objectives so incredibly fast by going for that Rapid Spin, by shredding those objectives with the Water Spout, and I've been running a Fluffy Tail Blastoise with that. The downside to Blastoise is it takes him a little while. I think if he evolved at 7, bro, it's a wrap, right? Or if he got Rapid Spin at 5, it's a wrap. But he doesn't get Rapid Spin until 7. He doesn't evolve fully until 9, but he does have a really, really good Unite move. Again, the one thing going for him is he does get Rapid Spin at 7. Sometimes you can have that for the first Dreadnought, which is very important because then you're able to kind of burst it with Water Spout and Rapid Spin. But again, there's a few little things about Blastoise that hold it back from being S tier right now. I don't see those things changing, right? The level you get Rapid Spin, the level it evolves at 9. But it has a really good Unite move, and I think it is a very, very solid defender. I do think it does outclass Slowbro right now, and I do feel like it outclasses Crustal. And again, I haven't even explored the Surf set a ton, but I know it can be really good at kind of, crowd controlling, separating opponents from the team, pushing them back from objectives. I think Blastoise is a really unique spot in this game, and now that it's officially out, we've got our first tournaments this weekend that are going to be showcasing Blastoise. We'll see how it really stands out in high-level play, but I have a feeling that this thing is going to be a very, very good defender. Maybe people are going to be running Snorlax and Blastoise, but again, it's so tricky right now because a lot of the tournaments aren't allowing Wigglytuff because of the glitches that are happening with Wigglytuff, so you're not really able to see the full perspective of what, like, the ideal team comp is. But if I were to kind of write it, I feel like you got to be looking at Greninja, Lucario, Snorlax, Wigglytuff, and then probably I could see Blissy, I could see potentially like a Cramorant, obviously. Very, very good in lane. I mean, that's a very scary combination. I mean, Snorlax, Cramorant, Lucario, Wigglytuff in lane, Greninja in jungle. That is a very, very meta and scary team to face up against right now with some tweaks here and there. So that's that, man. That's your tier list. I feel really strong about this tier list. Obviously, some of this is objective. I'm trying to speak from a high level of what I've seen in Masters now in top 500 rank. I've got almost 900 plus games now played, guys. I've been grinding this game like crazy. So let me know your thoughts. Hit that like button down below. And of course, subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. And if you guys want to see more tier list videos, let me know. We'll see if there's a patch next week. I think there will be on Wednesday. I will get some tweaks because there's definitely a lot of things needing to be fixed. Wigglytuff bugs right now are ridiculous. Like, it's almost unplayable for some characters to go up against Wigglytuff right now. So we'll have to see how it all plays out. But I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Thanks for watching. My name is Dan. I also go by aDrive, and I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.